What's up, Charles?
What's going on, Leslie?
Man, there's a lot going on. A lot has changed in a week. Let's just get it right at it. First of all, how you feeling? You good?
I'm here.
Well, that's better than the alternative.
That's right.
So let's look. Let me just start with this. I think we are up. I stopped counting, but at last count, we're up to 17 states that have now rescinded the mask mandate. Mississippi being one of them, Texas being one of them.
Leading the pack.
Thoughts?
Well, I think it's incredibly short-sighted considering we are just starting to get a handle on the numbers of vaccines available for adults, and that they are still now, CDC just now getting into guidelines for testing pregnant women. There's still a lot we don't know, and we know that any virus mutates, and so there are variants already out there. And so when you start removing safeguards and opening things back up, especially in Texas, I was looking at the Texas numbers. I mean, y'all still leading the way.
Still leading the way. Still leading the way. We have the highest increase of any state, and yet we have to go 100%, according to our governor. And businesses, every type of business, is at 100%. Oh, and by the way, the reason why COVID numbers are up, according to the governor, and I quote, the governor of the great state of Texas, and I quote, the reason why the COVID numbers are up is because the Biden administration is allowing illegal immigrants to come into and cross our borders, and they all have COVID.
Yeah, no, that's about as bad as blaming the grid failure on wind energy.
Yeah.
And did you know that the CDC had several states listed in the red? Two of which are Texas and Mississippi. And yet here we are with these two states making, I don't know, tragic moves that could possibly set the trajectory of the virus off by a lot.
No doubt. Absolutely no doubt. And so we're here. I wanted to take a different spin, Charles, and talk about the potential from a business owner's perspective. Okay. We know what we saw in the early days of the pandemic when the mask mandate was put in place. And consumers would go into, and not all consumers, certain consumers would go into places of businesses, and when they would require them to say you have to wear your mask in order to be served, they became violent. It happened all across the country. So as one business owner put it here in the Dallas area, I feel like the governor is just kind of leaving the small business person hang out to dry with no backup, because now we're either the bad guy, we don't let them in, or then, so interesting perspective. So what's your thoughts on that from a business perspective?
Look for violence to become more of the norm, because now the state has abdicated its duty to protect citizens, and for those privileged few who feel like the virus is a hoax or it doesn't apply to them, or they're not willing to wear a mask to protect the other citizens around them, it causes a problem.
Well, it does. And so the other interesting thing that nobody's talking about, particularly when you think about that, we had that much violence before. And I want to just for a second think about this for all of you who may react violent. I want you to think about something for a second. So you are wanting to go into a business and be served, but yet you don't want to follow the rules of the business. This is no different than any other rule. They're saying, hey, essentially what they're saying, I don't feel comfortable for my health if you don't wear a mask. Therefore, if you want me to serve you, you have to wear a mask. I don't really understand the logic or rationale on why you, and I'm talking to you, for those of you who I'm talking to, why you can go to violence. Because if I was to go into your establishment and you had certain rules and I didn't abide by those, would you want to serve me? And so I'm a little bit perplexed by that and that whole reason of thinking. So I'm just going to address it. So if anybody has any idea why that is logical or that frame of thought, I'd love to hear from you.
Call it privilege. Call it what it is.
Well, see, I don't know what to call it because it's I can't find the logic to call it anything right now.
So
That's why I'm asking
if we were speaking in analogies, though, Leslie, that's no different than a kid asking for candy and not getting it, and they throw a temper tantrum right at the cash register. So
temper
now
tantrums, I understand.
yeah,
Temper
but now
tantrums, I
you
understand.
yeah, but take it a step further. That's asking the store manager or a hourly employee to then step in and be your mother or your father and try to discipline you for something that you know you shouldn't be doing.
Right. So interesting. So guys, I know quite a bit of you in the audience. Chime in, give us your comments on your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear your perspective, and particularly if you know anybody that's reacted violent. I'd love to hear what their logic on that was because I don't get it. I don't have any problem saying I don't get it, but I just don't get that reaction. I get being upset. I get being frustrated. I don't get the violence.
Maybe that's because you're a nonviolent brother.
Perhaps. I just would like to say this is not even about being nonviolent or violent. This is just logical. I mean, there are certain things that happen and you might not agree with it, but you can understand what drove the violence. But this,
Yeah, but I tell you all the time, you try to apply logic in some of the strangest places.
because I guess that's just how I'm made up. I've got to find a logic because my
There
wife
is no logic. There is no logic to that.
whether maybe that's it.
Not in a traditional sense. So this you have to widen out the lens, Leslie.
Well, I think my wife is just chimed in and put it perfectly. And she says, "Why are we trying to understand the thought pattern of a food?"
Yeah, but before we go there, let's go here. Widen out the lens.
Okay.
You have one set of people in the United States who are getting their news and understanding of policies and understanding of COVID from reputable sources. You have another set who, with the advent of technology and streaming and alternate cable sites, they're getting a whole different diet of news that's telling them that COVID is not real. Mask wearing is not a thing that should be abided by. So in some sense, some of these people have been duped. It's no different than January 6th, where we're seeing what the violence in real time. And so here's something not COVID related, but it speaks to what you're saying.
Okay.
The gentleman who went and sat at Nancy Pelosi's desk and defiled her stuff and had a 950 volt stun gun on him. He had a status hearing on yesterday in federal court, and he was irate with a federal judge because he said, "Hey, the rest of those people who went in the Capitol, they out. Why am I still in?"
Mm.
And he was the same fella who told the police that you can come in with a search warrant and search my house, but I'm smart enough that you're not gonna find anything. But they did happen to find the container that the stun gun came out of, and so his glib statements are gonna work against him at some point. And when they told him what the maximum penalty was, up to 20 years, oh, he lost it because he felt like wait a minute, now I was doing this. He didn't say this, but I can use deductive reasoning and tell you he's thinking I did this in service of my president. Why am I being penalized for it?
Perhaps you're right about that. As crazy as it sounds, but I mean that's logical though. I can even see the logic in that because
Yeah, so there's your logic. There's your logic bone. When you take two paces back and you widen out the lens, a lot of this is heard, thought. You know, what's up, Neely? There you go. You can never rationalize irrational behavior. So stop trying to put logic to it.
man, we just live in these crazy times where it's like some of this, some of this stuff, just like really, and that's why I titled the show today so appropriate. Really, that's what we're doing now. I
Yes.
mean, that's really the thought process for some of the stuff that I'm hearing and seeing.
Well, I tell you all the time about Abbott. Abbott is an opportunist. He doesn't really care about what happens to the little man. He knows that he looks bad because he really royally messed up the power grid situation. Uh, Even to the point that the people he appointed have stepped down, but he tried to blame them. Well, you appointed them, sir. And you had warnings all along that you needed to be on that power grid. So it's it's amazing to me that now he uses this as an opportunity to change the subject away from that, this and that. Old school hip hop. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Good point. I mean, we know what's going on. I mean, when you look at Abbott's situation, particularly, he's vulnerable. He's mismanaged the pandemic. He's mismanaged the weather crisis. We're not new to problems in Texas. And then now his only play is wait a minute. He knows he's in jeopardy. He's up for election next year. I've got to try to realign myself with the largest base out there, which is what everybody's gunning for, which is Trump's base. That's his only play right now in his mind. You
Yeah.
might be right.
But look, this is what happens when you do things of this nature and you are supposed to be practicing good governance. Now these shop owners, now the mayors, now the judges in Texas, for the counties are having to step into that void and say, wait a minute, this serves no good interest to lift the mass ban, and we are this close to flattening out the curve. Same thing in Mississippi. It's just not good. It's just not good business. Even if you're opening things up, because we know it's been a strain on the economy, but there's a way to do that instead of just saying, okay, everything's lifted.
I agree. I mean, look, we're business owners too. We know the strain just as good as anybody. And I think the reality is there, but there's it's still we're so close to being at a point where we can do what they want to do. And I kind of like the words of the governor of West Virginia. He said, look, we in the just as he said, I don't understand the rush of trying to take off the mask. He said the fact of the matter is these masks will save many lives. And what's the rush? We're gonna open when we get these numbers a little bit further down the line. We're gonna do that. But what's the rush?
No doubt about it. I mean, think about from the standpoint of when you look at Moderna, Pfizer, uh, J&J now coming online, and even having a competitor help them uh, ramp up their production so it can get there. One shot in the arm, and you're vaccinated. Storage issues, logistic issues are much better. Even though the efficacy may be a little bit lower, it's one shot.
One shot.
And when you see their competitor joining them to help them get it out there, that says a lot. Now that's good governance coming from the top because they know Joe Biden as president is using the Defense Production Act to help ramp those numbers up to make sure that their plants can run 24 hours a day.
And let me just tell you guys, look, I'm seeing the evidence of movement all around us. You know, we have, if we look at last year as we started rolling it out, the vaccines. We have very few places where you could go. Look, I'm telling you, CVS is online now, so folks check out. See, they have an excellent way of their streamlining it through. How did I know? Because that's how I got my vaccine. And I'm just saying, I'm seeing it mobilize. Smith Wheels open up today, I believe, in Jackson as a mass facility. Globe Life Park is that way I hear. Now there are 3. They're making moves to get as many people vaccinated as possible. And if you look at the promise and just looking at the facts, his goal was 100 million in the first 100 days, but they're gonna surpass that. They're already well ahead of pace of that. And so I think now we may even be looking at maybe 150 million, and with Johnson & Johnson coming on. So it really, I can see it in action. I can see it happening. And so I just think that we have to just be patient and continue to do the right thing so we can protect each other.
Yeah, I mean, this is a cautionary tale of not celebrating before you get in the end zone. That's what these governors are doing. They're on the 20-yard line and they already celebrate.
Well, in that regard, with that analogy, I just tell you this: it doesn't matter if you get to the 1-yard line or the half-foot line. If you drop that ball before you cross the plane, it's a fumble.
Yeah.
And it's going back the other way. So look, it's not over until it's over.
This is true.
We're not out of it until we're out of it. And so we can't rush. Probably one of the most important things we've ever dealt with as a nation in my lifetime, we can't rush and put at jeopardy even bigger liability. So that's that. Charles, I want to bring up another issue, really, how we doing it. And this is going to get me in trouble, so I'm just going to go out and put it right there. And you probably going to have to dig me out of this trouble. But it's on my mind, so I'm going to say it. I don't hold back. So I got posed a question recently about, somebody asked me, hey, do you support Black Lives Matter? Do you support that? And I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. In Pine Bluff, Arkansas, I'm talking to you. This week, 2 15-year-olds at school. Unfortunately, one died. Shooting incident. My issue, when somebody asks me that question, I respond with this. Absolutely, I support the Black Lives Matter. However, my question is, does it only matter when it's not us killing us? Because I'm not seeing the outrage. I'm not seeing the same energy, passion, and focus. And to me, that's even more urgent need for me, just to me, as for one Black male to another. And so there it is. I put it out there. So it's not that I oppose it. I don't. But if it's going to matter, it need to matter every day, all day, not just conveniently. Thoughts?
I wouldn't necessarily tie those two things together, but I get your point. And I think there is outrage in the community. But when you talk about, again, we're going to widen the lens.
Okay.
So go back 400 years, your ancestors were in slavery. So from health disparities to economic disparities to infrastructure disparities, all of the good stuff is in one part of town. All the bad stuff is in the other part of town. So there's going to be cycles. And one of those cycles is going to be a cycle of violence. That doesn't excuse it, but a lot of that is learned behavior of survival. And so to address that outrage, you got to go back a ways and then cure it. Now, Black Lives Matter in and of itself is about Black people saying, hey, we want to live just like anybody else who has an altercation with the police. It's not saying that all police are bad. It's not saying that all Black people are bad. It's saying that we want the opportunity to go home from a police stop. Or we want to be able to go to sleep and wake up in our bed instead of being shot in our bed. That's all. I mean, it's simple when you boil it down. People try to add too many things together because Black people may be involved in both, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to qualify or quantify those two things together.
And that's why I brought up the point, because I knew you would give a different spin on it. And that makes sense. So what you're saying, if I may, to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that Black Lives Matter's angle, their focus, is specifically dealing with this narrow zone.
Yes.
If I open it up too wide, there's not that they're opposed to that. They're just saying that they're just going to tackle this one piece. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, I'm sure there are other pieces I know there are other pieces that they're tackling. But what I'm saying is people who oppose it, the first thing they like to say is, well, what about black on black crime? But then I give you a solution. That's more of a defense mechanism to say that Black Lives Matters is not worthy of the attention or the intention that is put on it.
Well, let me be clear. I do not oppose it. I do not. I absolutely fundamentally don't oppose it, and I support it. I just asked the question, in which you've answered, which you clearly answered. Is it limited in its scope? Does it not include this over here, which you have now given some clarity to? And I appreciate that.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And so since we taking steps back, I want to put this on the table because all of this is interrelated. When you say take a holistic approach to things, one of the reasons we're struggling with getting meaningful legislation through the United States Congress right now is because in the Senate, they have the filibuster and they're still hanging on to it. And I wish my new shining president and vice president who are alumni of the Senate would step up and tell the truth and acknowledge that the filibuster was put in place to protect Southern state senators when black legislation was put in for voting rights.
It was. We all know it.
Well, they need to own that and go ahead and get rid of it because there's too many things that need to get done. And we got this Mickey Mouse stuff going on up there with them having somebody, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, I'm talking to you. You didn't have the temerity to read the bill. You got somebody else to read it.
That's right. 625 pages. But that brings up an interesting point. So I want you to break this down because what's going on right now in the Senate, I want people to explain. So the Democrats had a choice. They had two paths to take to get this deal done and to get this package passed. One would require them to have more Senate votes, and one they could do with the majority they have with the vice president breaking the tie.
Yeah.
The one that required them to have more votes, I think at least 60 they would have had to have, I believe.
They had to have 60
They
votes.
would have been able to avoid they would have been able to avoid the amendments, right?
Yes.
But the one that they took allows them to avoid the filibuster.
Right.
So I just wanted you to explain that for a minute for ones that might not just understand the circus that's going on and just kind of the two paths that were before them and a little bit about that.
They're using what's called budget reconciliation, meaning that they have put the majority of the package inside of a budget vehicle. And they're voting on that because it only requires a majority vote, 50 plus 1, to pass. But,
which they have.
Yes, but you have people like Mr. Manchin, Senator Manchin from West Virginia, putting all these different traps in the way. Even though he's a Democrat, he's very conservative. So you got to watch all of that. Plus, I'm watching Lisa Murkowski from Alaska because there's a lot of money in there for Native tribes for dealing with COVID and some other stuff in Alaska, and she's up for election. So I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't vote her entrance and she's just not telegraphing her punch right now.
Mm-hmm.
But in reconciliation, there's also, because of the way the Senate rules go, there are a couple things at play. Minority rule, which is the Republicans right now, they have certain rights, and some of those rights is they can request reading of the bill in question that's going through reconciliation. They can have an unlimited, well, not unlimited. On the debate, they had up to 20 hours, but they chose to take 3 because they're then moving to the unlimited section of this clown show called Votapalooza, which means that they can they can offer unlimited amendments. And so what happens when that goes on is you offer those amendments so that you can slow down the process of getting it actually voted on for passage. Um, it's a horrible thing because a lot of those amendments are meaningless and they're meant strictly for political theater so that they can go back and cut commercials off of those votes. So that's why I say at this point in time, with a COVID relief package that has at least 60, some places up to 70% approval, it's time to get rid of the filibuster and just go do the people's business. Because
I agree. And I think, not to mention, guys, remember in that bill is all the resources for school districts, teachers, educators, or for the school district and for states and municipality to help get this vaccine out and to provide resources for that. And so that's all been held up too, as well as the extra stimulus funds for all Americans that qualify. Now, Charles.
I don't know if there's anybody in here from American government, but we've been talking about it extensively, and they could probably point out to you a couple of the main pieces of things that are, that are in there. You got a child tax credit that's in there. That's it's going to be up to $3,600. That will cut child poverty by 50%.
Yeah.
You have money going to some infrastructure things that will put people back to work. Well, the jobs report just came out, and of course, with numbers, you can use them however you choose.
True.
Here's how I like to look at them. Those infrastructure pieces are critical to getting people back to work, because while President Biden had a good showing on the jobs front today, and it was knocked down to 6.2% unemployment, how many mothers, how many fathers have been knocked permanently out of the workforce because they have to stay home and care for kids, or they have to stay home and care for a sick parent? So it's interesting to me that you would write those things off as not COVID relief or COVID worthy. It is, because it's sorely needed. Because even within that 6.2 number, Leslie, Latinx 8.4 unemployment, Black 10.2 unemployment.
Right. So, and in that bill is unemployment benefits extension.
Right, which expires on the 11th.
That's right, which is next Thursday, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. So it's critically urgent that those things are observed, and and then you have the direct stimulus that Manchin was playing around with. I mean, at this point, the Republicans use reconciliation and everything else available to them to pass a $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthy. The wealthy are not really hurting because they still getting checks during COVID.
Right.
They stacking paper. Big bank.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's
say now. Big bank.
If you have resources, you can make money in any economy.
Right. Big bank.
In fact, they will make more money right now than they will make when everything bounces back. Why? Because they're going to acquire everything while it's at dirt low prices.
That's right. They buying on the dips.
So, family, if you got any questions about this process, because I know you may be watching it on the news and trying to figure out why it's taking so long. And then, they're saying that this could take weeks now because we're just trying to explain that to you. So that means any senator can put unlimited amount of amendments to the bill. So now just to tell you that what's at play, the Democrats are trying, number one, to stay together, because you got within the Democratic mix, you got progressive, you got middle of the road, you got conservative, and they're trying to protect the most important parts of that bill, because with all these amendments for anyone that gets approved, it changes something in that bill. And so all of that going on, and when I can make unlimited amount of amendments, if I want to throw 100, because there's no limit, they can make, then when they make the amendments, then you got to go through the process of debating on them. So this could drag out for some time.
Yeah, it won't drag out that long. You just look at the Senate calendar, and when they get to go home next, it'll be over by then.
Oh, well, that's true because they're not gonna stay up there extra time.
No.
To do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're going to Mexico, Cancun or something. Stay at the Ritz-Carlton. I don't know. Great rate. I hear they have great rates.
They have great rates if you are Senator Cruz. Do we have any questions from the audience?
All right, audience. Let me see. Put your questions in. Guess seeing Nelly in the house and
is Neely still in the house? Shout out to Churchill Cigars. Neely, his business is located out there by Smith Wheels near where the site is set up.
So definitely go support Brother Neely. And we've all walked those humble walks on the yard together. And so he's doing great work too. Also check him out on Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. He does a great job there along with Corey C. and Charles Bishop. Also classmates during those great 90 eras on the yard. But support him. Here we go. Let me see. You got quite a few students, Charles. Let me see. Taylor Gray, Deontay Graham, Ezekiel, Joseph. Let me see. Who am I going to pick? I don't know.
Ask Mr. Graham what position he's going to be playing in the fall.
Oh, is he a player?
He said he's not just a player. He the president.
Oh. Well, Mr. Graham, what position will you be playing in the fall? Let us know. Hit us up in the chat. Charles, while we're waiting for those comments to come in, thank you for clearing up. I think this process, one of the things I will say about all this going on, if you didn't have any motivation to understand civics or government and learn how it works now, you getting a great opportunity to be educated.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Speaking of which, while they putting those questions in, wouldn't you know that in the places where Black people showed up and showed out at the polls in the presidential election, they are still using the big lie that there were irregularities in the voting to push hundreds of bills that will limit early voting, ballot drop boxes sold to the polls on Sundays, anything that was advantageous for Black and brown voters. Not because there was a real threat, but because they got thumped in the polls. Because if you look at Georgia as the primary test case, who passed the laws originally? Because Georgia has been Republican for as long as you can think. So they passed the laws, we just used them. And now they're saying because we used them, they need to take them back. They need to roll them back.
You know, speaking of that, what do you think about the former vice president's op-ed this week?
I don't. And I can't. And I won't.
So basically, for those of you that haven't seen it, former Vice President Mike Pence penned an op-ed Wednesday condemning House Democrats for sweeping election and anti-corruption, basically saying that there was all of this voter fraud, which was what Charles was just saying. That, and the way he coined it was every citizen should have a right to their vote, but only citizens that actually should have a legal right. Now, we knew what that undertone of that was. So you can go and read it, it's online. But I found it interesting that the vice president, who a few weeks ago, 7 weeks ago, a couple months ago, look, January 6th, not that far back, there was a chant going on and thousands of people that were chanting, "Hang Mike Pence." They were coming for him. And to hear him in his op-ed with this viewpoint, it just made me go back to what I said. Really, is that what?
Man, look, a zebra is still gonna be a zebra. It's gonna have its stripes.
Oh, Charles, we got some stuff for you now. So let's go. Kennedy Harrison has a comment. I'm gonna let you take this one.
It was people in the stadium not wearing masks or social distancing. I feel as though the pandemic may never actually be over. We just have to get used to this new norm for a while. Well, couple things. I agree with you, Kennedy. You should always practice good masking, good social distancing. There is some guidance from the CDC and Dr. Fauci that say outdoor events are a little bit better as far as not spreading or broadcasting the virus. But I tend to agree. You want good masking behavior at all times because it not only keeps you safe, it keeps the person next to you safe. And as far as the new normal, I mean, look, if people don't do what they're supposed to do, this virus is going to cycle back on us and punch us in the ear.
Not the ear.
Yeah.
Town Shaker Poet said voter suppression tactics.
No doubt, Curtis. No doubt. No doubt about it.
Yeah, Marsha said, yep. Hold on. What is the policy for the fans? Yep.
Well, that's why they try to do a capacity setup because they know people are probably going to get in there and take those masks off, and they try to have families sitting together. So you breathe in the air that you've always breathed. But look, get you a good Jackson State mask and put it on. Or stay home and listen to it on XM radio. Or
watch it on streaming on ESPN. Or better
ESPN.
yet, buy you a membership to the Jackson State Sports Network.
Yeah.
Support the school and watch it.
That's right.
So I know if Neely, if you're still on, if you want to, I know he follows us closely and has all the latest. If you wanted to tackle that as far as the policy at the stadium, because I know they did a whole segment on this on their show. I'll definitely yield to him. But so Neely, if you're still on, they were asking about what is the policy at the stadium for wearing masks. So, but that's a good point. I mean, I saw that too, and we all saw it. And I think the reality is, if you go back and look at any football game you watched over the year, that was the case at every one of them, whether it was Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, State, it didn't matter. They all had the same problem, same challenge. Because you can make sure, here's what I can guarantee and tell you. They came into the stadium with a mask on. That much I can tell you. So they have a mask in their possession. The challenge is always going to be getting them to keep the mask on. The reality is you don't have enough people to enforce that, to literally to follow around and keep them on. You just don't.
Yeah.
And Charles, I knew this was coming. All right, there are students on campus with no water that's actually hot or clean, unsanitary conditions. Do you think without clean water, we will be able to get rid or slow down a virus?
Scott, very good points. Jackson has got compound issues going on. Water pressure is not there. So a lot of people very close that live on campus are getting bad water, if any. And that water is brown in color. Some possible infections from using it. So, that's one thing. Then you compound on top of that we are still in a pandemic, which means you have to go out and be exposed trying to secure water, or you have to go to somebody else's place to take a shower. It's just it's like going through a maze, and it's not a good look for the city of Jackson. Everybody knows the city of Jackson has had water issues. We need to do a better job of getting the solutions down because this is getting ridiculous. There's some people still without water 16 days later.
Wow. Charles, I know you were a victim of that. What is the latest on the water conditions in Jackson?
Be patient. We're working on it. Our infrastructure is old, so give us time, which is not good enough.
Isn't that the same comments or rhetoric we heard at least 14 days ago?
Sick of it.
Yeah. There you have it. That's unfortunate, and it does. It does. It's. But I will say this: it is definitely shown the resiliency of the people of Jackson. They shouldn't have to. It's unacceptable the position that they're in. And here's another reason why you always say all politics are local.
That's right.
Because a lot of people, and particularly, and I'm going to say this to the students that are watching this today, you have to be involved in the process. It's not enough. And so many times, even looking at the latest stats. So I'll take Texas, for example, record turnout in last election, but still only 6 out of 10 registered voters voted. These are people that have gone through the work of getting registered.
Yeah.
Only 6 out of 10 voted. We've got to do better. And so these decisions and who your officials are and the decisions they're making are determined by you because we collectively put them in office. So all politics are local.
By action or inaction.
Either way, if you check, I tell people all the time, they say, well, I didn't vote. I say, you voted.
Yeah.
You voted.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be even more inspiration, encouragement for our youth to get involved in the political process, be a part of it, and demand accountability.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's simple things. Politicians respond to votes. That's the leverage that you have as a collective. That's how you hold them accountable. And if we're apathetic about voting, we're apathetic about going to the polls, and then when the election comes around, if it's not a presidential election or off cycle, we lucky if we get 20% turnout to the polls. That's not going to cut it. You got to be involved in the process to change the process.
No doubt about it.
Compare that to other ethnicities, and you see how drastic the difference is, then don't ask yourself why. Be part of the change. All right. Yep. And Kennedy has another question. She said, do you think the local and state government would take accountability for the horrible water infrastructure? This has been going on for years. So will there ever be a solution? And do you think this time those government officials would be voted out over this situation?
They should be, but do I think they will be? No. And then the second part of your question is a larger question of cooperation between state and local. And unfortunately, right now we have state and local that's talking past each other. And even though Jackson is the capital city, Jackson is predominantly Black. The prerogatives of the governor and his staff are for the rest of the state. Even though most of the capital and everything else is here, his mansion is close enough that if he and Mr. Mayor wanted to actually talk, they could probably yell out the window at each other.
That is true.
So I'm not pleased with either one of them.
I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, the reality is accountability. And look, I will say it over and over. It's kind of like that old adage, and you don't win a battle with law enforcement on the side of the road. You don't win a political battle by not being involved in the process. You just don't. Now, you can make a lot of noise. You might get some airtime, but you're not going to evoke change.
That's right.
All right. We got another question here.
Good question, Reginald Bird. Good brother Bird. Congratulations to your pops. I see your pops is going to be the interim mayor at Moss Point.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations on that.
Yeah. But yes, that's an interesting question that Leslie should be chomping at the bit to answer. If you are into cryptocurrency or into blockchain, then one of the things that is coming about is the COVID passports.
Yep.
VChain, which is one crypto, they've been approved in some countries for the use of their COVID passport, and then sharing or share token.
Sharecoin, yeah.
Yeah, they have a dynamic suite of offerings that are being put in place to be used for travel. Um, and that will be basically your COVID passport on your phone.
Yeah, and then I know Marsha's in here, who's our professional travel agent, and she may, if she's still on, can chime in and talk about some of the things that even some of the key destinations we like to go to are going to be put in place. And so the reality is, I would venture to say, once we get to a point of herd immunity, not just in the U.S. but across the world, what you're going to find is people are going to be. Well, first of all, you've already seen it. When it happened, you saw countries lock down and say, "Yeah, America, you stay there. You're not welcome." And so, if it happened then, you better believe that as we get further down the line, they're going to put some travel restrictions in place that is going to be something like this. You can come in our country without having vaccine or proof of it, but if you do, you will have to be quarantined from the point of entry for 14 days before you will be allowed to leave the hotel.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about, and when they do this quarantine, it's not a quarantine where they just tell you to go lock yourself up and they count for you to not. No. They regulate it. They are watching you. You pretty much in jail for 14 days. So because it's the only way to protect their citizens. So if you don't go through and do the steps to make sure, so here's what they're going to do. They're going to make sure they test you. So you may be able to get in if you test negative, right? If you test positive, you can forget it, and then they still gonna make you quarantine.
Yeah.
So do you want to spend an extra 7 to 14 days of your vacation stuck in quarantine where you can't enjoy it? So that means you got to take a vacation for 21 days just to get 7? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
But that's a good point. And I'm pretty sure the airlines are gonna have to do something because they're not gonna have any workers. At that rate.
Well, it's not so much the workers. The airlines get you from destination to destination.
Yeah.
They're not gonna be able to offload
passengers. That's true.
So they're gonna have to abide by whatever entries they're going to, whatever those rules are.
Listen, I heard just some conversations. None of this is in play yet, but just some talk about possibilities. And they were saying, right now, when you travel internationally, once you start getting close to the destination, they start passing out your custom cards and declaration cards that you got to complete. Well, just imagine if that's happening internationally, they start passing out and you got to take a COVID test right there, either before you board the plane. You got to take a COVID test, or you got to take it before you can get out of customs and get into that country. There's going to be some mechanisms, and they have to be, to protect their business, their interests, and to ensure these countries that they're flying into that they're bringing safe passengers and safe tourists. So there's going to be some things put in place, and I don't think it'll ever be the same. We've never returned to the same after 9/11. Things were put in place that are still in place today. You can't just go walk your baby down and watch them get on the plane and take off anymore. You haven't been able to do it since 9/11. Some things will just never be the same. So just learn to accept that we're going to have a new normal going forward.
Yeah.
But I'm ready to travel, though. I'm ready to go. Good questions. Good stuff. Good stuff. We got a few more minutes, so any last questions, get them in. So Charles, what else is on your mind in this Friday as we look at what's transpired and thinking about the topic? Really, is that what we're doing? What else is on your mind?
We just passed 5 o'clock, so after 5 o'clock, I started thinking about Jackson State football. Taking on one of our nemesis in Grambling State University at Grambling at 12 o'clock noon.
Hold on, wait a minute. We just had this guy that I'm about to put up on the screen. He's trying to call me out. So you know there's a little guy named Pittman, and little real short dude, about that tall. And he said, yes, you can walk a child to the plane. Not like you used to, sir. Not like you used to. You got to get you now. They have to approve you to do that, and there's a thing that you have to get. So you go through security. You got to approve to do that. But before you could just do it. You didn't have to do any of that. So that's what I mean. You know, and look at him. I can't go continue. I just had to. I had to do that.
No, I mean, hey, look, if you guys want to have that argument, I'm all for it. I mean, hey, if we arguing about everything else, might as well throw that in there.
Might as well. Well, before we close, and I do start thinking about Jackson State football, so let's segue to that for a minute. So we're taking on Grambling this week.
That's right.
The first SWAC game of the season, of the spring season. First spring season ever. This is a big one. This is where we see where we stand. But also, I realized, I was right about this, we're going to have some people playing this week that didn't play in week one.
Okay, coach.
I'm just saying, listen, that's all I'm saying. That's all. I don't know anymore.
Far be it from me to try to substitute myself as Coach Prime. Let's just go down there and get a W.
That's right.
But here's what I want to talk about when we talk about COVID safety. When you go to Grambling, there's enough dust on the visitor side that you need to wear a mask anyway. But you also should know that you need to take plenty of fluids to hydrate because Grambling Stadium is like no other. It's built into a hill, and the visitors sit right directly in the sun. So if you've never been, you need to take that into account.
You know what, child? The best thing about playing in the spring is you can survive the Grambling game. Because, man, I can tell you, I remember the day, it's been many days, we must almost all passed out. And don't mention, if you need to go to the restroom, to the concession stand, you have to walk all the way back up the hill.
That's right.
And it's a steep hill. I mean, it's not like a hill. It's
a steep hill.
It is that. So definitely you would need water, Gatorade, vitamin C.
Probably needs a Pedialyte too.
Yeah, all of that. So it's going to be that type of day. So, but it should be a good one.
Yeah, it should be a good one.
I think
looking forward to it. I mean, it's a good test. Grambling hadn't lost at home since 2018, 2017, something like that.
That's true. So you know what? Here's what my message to Grambling.
Shout out to SOP, Lost Power right
there. So my other words, we came to play. We coming to play. And so let's play the game we shall. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. But I like what I see in the Tigers, the 2021 spring edition. And I think we haven't seen the best of the Jackson State Tiger football team yet.
Well, we only seen them play one time. Now let's not.
I simply said I think we haven't seen the best of them yet.
Okay.
That's all I said.
All right.
That's all I said. I don't have no predictions. I got to give respect to Grambling because they've been winning. They still the champion till you beat them. So
Yeah.
that's that. But that's why we play the game. So we shall see.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then let me see. Bird says USM will play Grambling for the first game this year.
Okay. That should be interesting. That'll be a good game.
Demetrius says that's the only thing I got for Grambling.
What? That you need to take plenty of fluids and wear a mask, even if it's COVID or not. That's all facts.
Yeah, look, that's just facts. I mean, you know your place is a challenge when you've got to take Gatorade, water, and all of this in the winter. Because it's still technically winter.
Yeah, but what is the temperature supposed to be for Saturday?
I don't know.
Because that's gonna play into it. Because I once went to a ground game where they had a line of ambulances on the visitor side because they knew people were gonna pass out from dehydration.
Oh, that's pretty normal. Now wait a minute, Charles. I'm gonna let you address this comment right here because I'm gonna have to shut this one down.
Who? What's that?
Yeah, that's what I said. Who is that? I haven't heard of them. I haven't heard of them. I just don't. I'm trying to understand. Maybe somebody can give me a lesson on who they are.
Oh, okay.
But you know, when we've been playing for as long as we've been playing, if you hadn't beat me enough times to register, then you probably hadn't beat me much. Just saying. I agree with you, Pitman. Nobody thinking about it.
Right.
So, but yeah, be safe, guys. Continue to be diligent. If you want, get your vaccine. Register with the county. Also register with CVS. Register with Walgreens. They're all giving them out. And now the Johnson & Johnson's one-shot vaccine is out there as well. No excuse. Get your vaccines. Do what you need to do to protect yourselves and also those around you, and that'll allow you to kind of get back to spending time with your family and your loved ones in a safe way.
That's right.
Now, until then, even though we don't know who win the game, I can tell you who I want to win the game. With absolute certainty, I can tell you who I want to win the game, and I can unapologetically tell you who I support. Well, what say you, Sir Charles? Can you agree?
Tiger born, tiger bred. When I die.
If you have it.
Yeah.
There it is. So again, we talked about a lot today. Quick recap. We brief you on what's going on in Capitol Hill. We've talked about the governor's decisions in 17 states to end the mask mandate. We've talked about what you need to do. We've talked about, particularly to the younger demographic, of being a part and being involved in the voter process. You have to vote. We got to get beyond this part where we have people registered to vote and they're still not voting. We have to turn out consistently, and we have to turn out with deliberate intent to do the right thing, to move our country, our communities, our neighborhoods, our families forward. And I'm counting on you to do a better job than what we've done and the generations before us. Until next Friday, have a good one. Enjoy yourselves, but not too much. See you next time.